You are listening to the John Tesh Network, where we bring you intelligence for your life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right here at Tesh.com. We have a guest right now who has a great background and a great story to tell, especially if you are a parent. Because one of the things that makes it so hard sometimes to be a parent is to try to explain the value of money to your kids. And we are joined by Denise Winston. Denise is a financial expert, spent a career in banking, founder of Money Starts Here, which is a financial education company, and the author of the forthcoming book, Money Starts Here, Your Ultimate Guide to Survive and Thrive in Any Economy. Boy, that's a pretty strong statement.
You know, money is a fact of life for every single one of us, and it can be so complicated. And how do you survive some of these situations? And that's a lot of my story. I've actually lived on my own since I was 16, and I'm a 25-year banker. So, you know, the strategies that I've put in place, not only for the general population, but for parents, are proven and time-tested. And it's not rocket science. It's really easy to do if you just know what to do. And I show people how to do that.
Okay, I have 3 kids, and 2 are teenagers, and 1 is about to be a teenager. And I sound like my grandpa when I say they don't know the value of a dollar. Is that a common thing, that kids just don't know what money means?
I absolutely think that is the case. And I think that's the case a lot of times because money really isn't money anymore. We use plastic, right? So they never see money. And we as parents are busy, and life is just going, and the kids are busy. And teaching our kids about the value of money, or just money in general, sometimes it's easier for us to just take care of stuff. And when we were kids, our parents and grandparents, that was a critical point that they always taught us, was about money. And somewhere I think we've lost that in our culture just because we're simply so busy.
And the days of earning an allowance and being able to save up money for things like baseball cards or whatever are really different now, because now it's, I need your credit card because I want to buy something from the iTunes store.
And so true. And, you know, unfortunately, what we're doing is we're robbing our children of learning the value of delayed gratification. Because when you think about it, when you were a kid, didn't you love having that goal of wanting that baseball card so badly that you would, you know, find pop bottles, or you would mow the yard, you'd do anything you could do so you could earn that card. And when we just give our kids and we don't let them earn it, we're actually robbing them of goal setting abilities and, you know, of the self-confidence, knowing that we can accomplish something that we set our mind to.
And unfortunately, we're teaching them some bad habits as well, because so many people don't really deal with money the way that they should. It's just a credit card and you put it in and the statement comes later, and then it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay this?
Exactly. And we cannot afford to teach that same circumstance and that same way of life to our children, because really, if we don't teach our children, you know, how to budget money and money as a life skill, we're robbing them of their potential financial independence and of their self-confidence, and just of so many things in life. And that's where it's just so imperative that we, you know, not only set up a strategy with our kids and work with them, but we can learn along the way with them. You know, and that's the glory of really putting some of these things into practice.
We are talking with Denise Winston. Her website is moneystarthere.com, and she is a financial expert, and we're talking about teaching kids the value of a dollar in the end. And when do you start? When do you start being able to explain this stuff to kids? How old do they have to be?
You know, the earlier, the better. And let me put it to you this way. When you have a baby, that baby simply can only lie there, right, for the first couple of months of life. And then they learn to roll over, and then they eventually sit up, and then they pull themselves up, and then they take a few steps. And before you know it, you know, by about, 18 months, they're running around like crazy children all over the place. And it takes a long time to learn to do anything. And that's where, as parents, we need to remember how important it is for us to make sure that our kids have a lot of experience in dealing with money. One of the mistakes I see is that a lot of parents, are busy and life is going, and they never get around to teaching their kids about money. And when they turn 18 and they're ready to go off to college, they're really aggravated and frustrated because their child doesn't know how to handle a checkbook, or they can't budget their money for food or clothing when they're off at college. And so when you really backtrack that, starting at an early age is one of the best things you can do for your kids. Starting at, 4 or 5, just understanding and putting these scenarios, I call them financial field trips or just experiences to dealing with money in the hands of your kids, because they want to make decisions and they want to feel important in the family and like you trust them to make a decision. And when it comes to money, there's a lot of really easy ways that they can do just that.
Give me a couple of examples of some easy ways that you can make it really simple for them to understand that.
Well, let's talk about the really young child.
Okay.
Say a child maybe, 3 to 5 or 3 to 6. You may not be dealing with actual money as a currency, but there's nothing that you can't say that you can't provide your child, raffle tickets or pop bottle caps or something that is actually a currency, because we have 2 currencies in life, right? We have our time, which you cannot make more of, and we also have money. So if you decide to just say, maybe for good behavior they get so many tickets, or maybe cleaning their room, or cleaning their plate, or being good in the family, they get so many tickets, and they can spend those tickets for something like more video time or more TV time or something they really want to do. They start learning the value of their time and how to spend it, as well as quantifying something as a currency. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And that's actually something we did with our kids and gave them the opportunity to earn. They were actually Legos. And the more Legos they got, the more stuff they could build.
Exactly. That's the perfect market. That is fantastic. That's the most creative one that I've heard so far. So congratulations to you. Your kids are lucky to have you and your wife.
It's my wife. Believe me, I just show up every day. It's totally my wife.
But you know what? It takes 2 to build that scenario with your kids. And the more that you support your kids together and in those teaching opportunities, the better. And as your child gets older, you can look at the allowance a couple of different ways. You can look at and here's where I think a lot of times we have lost the art. A lot of parents feel that allowance is only for the child doing something. So they have to do their chores, or, I hear a lot of parents say, well, my kid doesn't do anything to earn allowance, so I'm not going to pay him. But I think one of the most important things we can do is transition to think about allowance as a teaching tool. And, I don't get an allowance for going to the grocery store or cooking dinner, so I'm not so sure that I need to pay my child for just being a household, citizen and making her bed and doing the dishwasher, because it's part of operating as a family. But it could be done for chores. It could be done for extra credit chores, maybe the really hard ones like, scrubbing baseboards. Or it could simply just be for the art of learning to manage money. And when you do that, you are, again, going back to the baby from being, just being able to lie there to run. You're giving your child lots and many, many years of experience of dealing with money. So if you can just figure out what you need to spend money on your child for, you can figure out how much of an allowance it should be, and then they have total control of that money. And if they blow it, they blow it. And you just have to commit in advance to not save them. Because when you rush in to save them financially from every single financial situation, they get used to that, and then they feel like they're not capable. And we're kind of sending a mixed message when we step in and save our child every single time.
And you're setting yourself up for those 2 a.m. calls from college that they're totally broke and I need money now.
Exactly. So really setting the stage early on. I think from the time that a child is 8, they get the concept. And the other thing about dealing with allowance is they learn goal setting abilities. They also learn delayed gratification. And math is huge, because now they're putting these calculations, for math in their day-to-day lives. And you can really build that into going to the grocery store, or, how long it's going to take for them to save up for that toy or game. And a lot of times parents can say, well, if you really want something, if you pay half, I'll pay half. And then the child, you'd be amazed at how many times the child says, oh, I'll pass.
Exactly. I've had that happen. You're right. When you say you want that video game that's $50 or $60, and half of that will be how much, and they figure it out and they go, oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
Yeah, especially if they have that money in a savings account. And I think the trick is really, as a parent, for us to know which one of our child is a saver and which one is a spender. And this is really important for us to make sure we create a lot of situations where they either have to save or spend. Because as we know, we have to deal with money every day of our life. We have to make decisions whether we save or spend, the difference between a need or a want. And we've got to give our child lots of experience to learn how to control those desires and impulses to want something and not give in to it immediately.
Yeah, very good point. We are speaking with Denise Winston. Her website is moneystarthere.com. She is a financial expert, founder of Money Starts Here, which is a financial education company, and has got a book coming out soon called Money Starts Here, Your Ultimate Guide to Survive and Thrive in Any Economy. And we're kind of focusing today on getting your kids money smart and getting them to understand the concept of money and using money. So when you get the kids to be a little bit older and they actually need to have money for either going to the movies or getting a snack at school or something like that, how do you go about getting them to understand that money just doesn't grow on trees?
If you just simply put a $5 bill on the counter every single day, then the child never learns how to budget, right?
Right.
They're just being allotted that money to go to school for lunch, and they know every day they're going to get that $5. But if you simply said, okay, here's $25 during the week. I did this with my daughter. My daughter's now 22, and I gave her lunch money, and I said, hey, if you decide to make your lunch, you can put that money in your savings account, because I wanted her to learn how to budget her time in the morning so she could save money in the long run, because when she goes off to work or to college, if she doesn't learn to make her lunch, she's going to be spending a lot of money, right?
Right.
And her health may suffer, because eating out sometimes can be hard to do on a healthy level. So, I explained to her that if I'd be happy to buy her supplies to buy her lunch, and if she chose to get up in the morning and make her lunch, then she could put that money into her savings account. And believe it or not, guess which one she chose?
I'm guessing to keep the money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she saw her time as valuable, so she could earn money and put that money away. So, and backtracking a little bit, when it comes to allowance, when kids are small, it's great if you can set up an allowance, whether it's for chores or extra activities or just simply to budget money. If you set up a specific payday, we want to make budgeting just like we want to make sure our kids are prepared when they get their paycheck to have a large sum of money and then have to divvy that up. So if you can, as a parent, say that I'm going to pay you every Saturday morning, and you pay your younger children especially in small denominations and change, that will help them allocate. And if you get 4 jars and you put a little bit of money in each jar, and maybe the small jar is a baby food jar, and maybe that's for charity or tithing, and then maybe a small jelly jar for long-term spending, and then maybe a smaller jar for a short-term goal, and then a larger mason jar really for just spending. It's a really good visual for the kids because they can see their money in each jar. And if you want to, you can actually put a picture of something that they're saving for on the outside, so that they can divvy up the change, they can divvy up the dollar bills, and they can see their money in the jars and make a decision where they want to put that money.
That is a great idea and easy. Besides that, it doesn't sound like it's very difficult at all.
No, it is super easy. And if you just find in a magazine something the child's saving for and you tape it on there, it gives them a visual, something that they're, I think one of the biggest problems with money is it's not tangible. When you talk about money as a life skill, you can't touch it and feel it. It's just something you have to get experience doing and know. And when you start putting pictures, especially, it's very powerful. We're a very visual society. And when you do that for your kids, you are really teaching them how to do that. And I have to tell you, I do financial literacy talks all across the nation, and I work with a lot of high school kids. And you would be amazed at how many of the students, unfortunately, have never had a goal workshop where they have set a goal and figured out how to get there. And this is one way you can preposition your child to set goals and ultimately achieve them in not only financial circumstances, but in just about every other area.
Amazing. I want to talk a little bit about the way to try to teach your kids how to deal with money in a world that doesn't really deal with actual money anymore. But we need to take a break. John Tesh is part of our show, obviously, and he's got some intelligence for your life. And what we'll do is check in with John, and if you can hang around for a couple minutes, let's continue our discussion, if that's okay. We will be back with Denise Winston in just a couple minutes, right after we hear from John Tesh on the John Tesh Network.